You're just gonna be an update of many things. Right now, we're supposed to be listening to an update of Venezuela from first post.
When I'm dancing, Maduro would be singing his heart out. Listen to this. What a happy.
Ah, please, never mind. Let me get to y'all something serious. I thought they was gonna be talking about something. Um. Oh, okay. This is from Court TV. This is the Nick Reiner arraignment. Let's get it.
We live for the moment, the kind that changes history. It's been an incredibly busy day. Long way to go. We have a long way to go, and I think that cases like this help shine a light, but they also show a disparity between what the
Oh,
rich
let
and
me
the
share
poor
this live
get
stream.
in
Hold on,
terms
y'all.
of better access to better lawyers, to with better connections, as you said.
Share
So
this.
that's also a light that will get shown. Hasn't gotten special treatment yet, and I think that Mr. Hocklin, the DA in Los Angeles, would argue that he's not going to get special treatment, and that'll be the push, the Alan Jackson fact. What does Alan Jackson buy you? If and what. How different would this look if if Nick Reiner were being represented by let's say, Philip Dubé, a public defender? Well, be well served by having Philip Dubé represent him. I know, and from my, I have a lot of colleagues that spent a long part of their career at the DA's office before moving over to civil, and they all are good friends with Alan. And those of us on the civil side have run up against him, you know, in cases where he maybe is defending a criminal sex offender. He's well known in our community and well liked, and he's ruthless. He's tough. He's a very, very good lawyer. So, is he the only one that is capable of any of that? Absolutely not. There's a lot of other fine lawyers, as you mentioned, Philip Dubé out there and others that are also perfectly capable of that and that have those relationships. But there is an Alan Jackson factor. He's high profile. That could have some pushback as well with Hawkins in his office, where they're going to be doing their level best to not show special treatment to Alan Jackson or this team. Yeah. All right, Krista, thank you. We're going to get a break. When we come back, we'll monitor Reiner, also Texas. Stay with us.
Oh boy. Okay. I thought it would have something else for us, but boy, hold on, y'all. I got something here. Hold on.
I think she was probably trying to be careful too, to not try to come across too much like they were victims or like her family was a victim. And there was one part that really stood out to me where she said that she, remembers the victims and honors the victims, and even said that in her phone she has the victims' birthdays saved, so she remembers each victim on their own particular birthday, which stood out to me and just shows, that I guess the process that they've been going through too, with dealing with this, knowing that it's their brother, that it's her brother, that it's their family member, that it's their son, but also remembering the victims too. And I'll tell you, seeing them in court, I obviously knew that they had feelings and that they were victims in a sense in all of this, but they didn't show that side in court so much. They never really looked over at the victims' families, or they never made any statements outside court. They never made any written statements. But now it's coming out that they felt pretty bad about this all along.
Well, and that heart that we all zoomed in on that was in front of Brian Koberger during the sentencing, it turns out Mel actually drew that heart for him just to remind him that he's loved by his family,
Yeah.
which I understand. This is a family. You cannot
you cannot imagine what they're going through. I do want to ask you about this very unusual moment. It's the only thing that sort of gets close to crime, and that is that Mel cut her finger on foil, like a foil wrap in the kitchen, and it was bloody. And Brian made a comment about it. Describe what that was.
Yeah, remind me. I don't remember that part of the article. What did he say again, Ashley? Because I remember it was weird. It was home, right? For during Christmas, she cut her finger.
Yeah.
And what did he say?
And he was like grossed out by the blood, and still helped her to bandage it. And all I kept thinking was like, you've just caused one of the biggest bloodbaths in true crime history, and there you are with your sister in a little tiny cut with blood, grossed out by it. I couldn't process that.
Yeah, and I'm remembering now she said that she was surprised he was helping her so much because he had been grossed out by blood in the past, but still helped her in that moment, which, yeah, I mean, you're right. It's weird to think about when we know how gruesome the murders were and how many times he stabbed the victims and how bloody it was, that she's saying that he was, that he was grossed out by a cut from tinfoil. It's kind of hard to wrap your mind around. It almost makes you wonder if he, had like almost two personalities in a way,
Yeah. Oh, I think so. I think that personality in the house that night is like none other that he's shown anyone else before. Brian Enton, I was so looking forward to talking to you about this because I've just been like ruminating on this interview all day. Thank you for this. I appreciate it. And Happy New Year, my friend.
Thank you. And I missed you too, with you were off. So I'm glad you're back.
Back for a little bit, but we'll get into that later. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right, folks, coming up, we still do not know exactly when Celeste Rivas Hernandez met her very untimely death. And if the LA police know, they sure aren't saying. But the window is narrowing, thanks in part to a newly uncovered photograph. A photo that might just be the last one taken of her. The private investigator who uncovered it in singer David's former Hollywood Hills mansion is live with me next. At some point, we are going to know why it's taking so long to bring charges in the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. At some point. I mean, her dismembered body was found almost 4 months ago, right? Rotting in that thing right there. The trunk of her boyfriend's Tesla in an LA impound lot. But the major hurdle is likely to be exactly what I just laid out. The condition of young Celeste's remains. She was degraded to the point where neither cause nor manner of death has been determined yet, at least scientifically. Police are assuming at this point it was a homicide. But the date of Celeste's death is a mystery. Police said that she'd been in that Tesla, which was owned by that boyfriend of hers, the singer David, who spells his name with a number 4. They said she'd been there for weeks at a minimum, which makes any evidence of her whereabouts at any point during the year of 2025 super duper important. And that brings me to this. The last known photograph of Celeste Rivas Hernandez while she was still alive. This picture was found in that luxury mansion that David had been renting in the Hollywood Hills, or at least his manager had been. All up until the Celeste case began to, blow up, and then he moved out suddenly. You'll remember that a burn cage and a chainsaw were found inside that Hollywood Hills home. Not the kind of place you'd use a burn cage or a chainsaw, Hollywood Hills. That was all found a few months after the police had searched that place and after David had moved out of that place. My next guest is responsible for all of those discoveries. His name is Steve Fisher, and he is a missing persons private investigator and also a friend of the show. Steve Fisher, look at you. You found this photograph, this what we might assume could be a last known photograph. At least the public has seen, because we don't know what the cops have. But talk to me a little bit about this photograph and what you see in it.
Well, it's taken at the Baldwin Hills Scenic Overlook, which is kind of in the middle of the city here. And, one thing I will say is that a lot of the photos on the camera are of hiking and stuff like that. But this, I don't know, this looks sad to me. She looks kind of lost and alone. It's heartbreaking to know that this is the last photo of her that we have right now. I mean, investigators likely have more images of her, but it's just I don't know. She just looks very alone to me.
Well, and this is January 2nd, right? So almost a full year ago, January 2nd, 2025. And again, everything that happened in 2025 is sort of a mystery because there's, photos of her are so rare. Yeah, are there like Ring doorbell cams or anything in this neighborhood that they've been able to maybe dig up to shed some light on what was going on here?
I haven't been able to. Now, whether they have or not, it's a different story. But it seems that she was really kept away from the front of the camera, and these are rare events that even on this camera that has over 1,000 photos on it, there's only a handful with her, and I think that's on purpose. I think he was very, very aware that he was playing with danger, and because of her age, and even when she is photographed or is going backstage or something, she's always covering herself, and it seems like she's aware. And when he says that he media trained her, I believe that. I believe that she was taught to, keep a very low profile.
Yeah, she was like 13 and 14, for heaven's sake. That's not somebody who should be out gallivanting around with a singer who's the age of majority. The hoodie. This hoodie is, you might not notice it in this picture, but you can see a distinctive pattern, like raised pattern on the hoodie. Talk to me about what's significant about this picture and other pictures that you've seen with hoodies that look a lot the same.
Yeah, so she's often wearing hoodies, but this has these cut marks in it. It's sliced all the way around. And this same hoodie is photographed, and David takes a selfie and posts to social media the very next day on the 3rd from the bedroom he was staying in at that house. And you can see this hoodie crumpled up in the corner on the ground. And, and there was another one of a different color that was also, at the house. But, I think she's wearing his clothes, which was the kind of typical. I think she walked away from her house with little or nothing and was reliant on him. I don't think she was staying there all the time, but I think when she was with him, she's wearing tomboy stuff like this. And
yeah. Quick question. And I only have like 20 seconds left, but I really want you to talk about the smell in the Tesla. She'd been in the Tesla for quite some time in the neighborhood of the Hollywood Hills, and now we're learning what some of the neighbors thought the smell was. What was it?
Yeah, so I talked to another neighbor, I won't say exactly where, but they had, their dog had passed away, and they had buried the dog in the yard, and they were getting a smell anytime the temperature would get over 70 degrees or so, and they were about to unbury the dog and bury it deeper, and it ended up that it wasn't the dog, it was the Tesla, and his dog died in February.
Oh man, that's just so disheartening to think now they're looking back and thinking they thought it was their dog. It was not their dog. Steve, you've done amazing work. I don't know, I just sense that it's coming close, some kind of, resolution, maybe an arrest in this case. I'm going to call you again soon. Thank you for this.
Thanks for having me.
And Happy New Year to you, Steve. I appreciate it. Coming up next, folks, the potential breakthrough in this murder mystery that has stumped the police in Ohio for 6 days. An innocent couple found murdered in their own home, their small children left to fend for themselves. Now, a quote-unquote person of interest has been captured on a doorbell cam. Was this the killer? After the break, the brother-in-law of the murdered husband will join me live with what he knows about this stunning mystery. Big breakthrough this evening in a mystifying double murder. Police in Columbus, Ohio, released the first image yet of a person of interest in a brutal crime that is now more than 6 days old. This man or woman was captured by a doorbell cam in the early morning hours of Tuesday morning, December 30th. That's when somebody shot to death Spencer and Monique Tepe. It happened inside their own home. Their two little children, aged 4 and 1, were left to fend for themselves with their dead parents' bodies nearby. Those kids are now in the care of relatives. Spencer was a respected dentist, and police ruled out a murder-suicide almost immediately. So far, the gun remains a mystery. They did not find it. And they didn't see any signs of a break-in either. The murders were discovered by a friend who got worried when Spencer didn't show up for work. He went by the Tepe's house, and that is when all hell broke loose.
There's a body. Our friend wasn't answering his phone. We just did a wellness check. We just came here, and he appears dead.
Okay.
His blood. He's laying next to his bed, off of his bed, in his blood. I think get closer to see more than that.
Okay, so you can tell he's obviously not breathing or anything?
Yeah.
Is it like kind of like, you know, because it says he looks like...
It's definitely puddled, but I can't lie.
Okay, all right, I understand.
Rob Misla is Spencer Tepe's brother-in-law. He's married to Spencer's sister, and he's live with me now. Rob, I am so sorry that we are meeting under these circumstances. Have you learned anything new tonight about who this potential person of interest might be?
No, unfortunately, you know, I know just as much as the next person. I was told by a reporter about 10 minutes before this got posted that it was released by the police department, and you know, when I first saw it, yeah, I do think, you know, suspicious looking person there. It also very well could be, you know, somebody walking home drunk from a bar, but you know, it's evidence nonetheless that hasn't been released until now, and it's good that they're progressing through this.
And this is right between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., which is the window they say they believe the shootings happened. Rob, do you or your family members have any idea who might have been capable of doing this? Did your family have any enemies? Did Spencer and Monique have any enemies at all that are known?
Not that I can speak on or know of. I know that they've had this massive community around him that they were just so well liked and admired by everyone. You can see in this picture that's kind of defines them. They were always smiling. They were always laughing. So it's really just unbelievable and shocking to all of us when we found out. I still, a week later, still doesn't feel real. I can't believe I'm like here talking about this. So,
I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. What do you know about the little kids? Spencer and Mo had two little ones. I mean, I think one is 1-year-old, the other one is 4. Do you have any idea what they saw, what they experienced in that home?
We do not. I know they've met with some people to talk. It sounds like I can't really talk on any evidence, but we've had them with us for the past couple of days. They're with some other relatives at the moment, and they were just as happy and unfortunately unaware as they ever could be. But they're in loving hands, and even more people are coming by their side to make sure that they're taken care of. But yeah, it's just heartbreaking for them.
That's huge what you just said. It sounds to me like they did not see the carnage. This isn't going to be a lifelong memory for them. Were they spared even the visuals of what happened?
As far as I know, I don't think that they were. I don't think that they saw what happened, or at least I want to believe that with my heart. So.
Yeah, or the aftermath. How has the communication been with the police? Have they been updating you? Are they helpful? Are you as in the dark as everyone else?
Personally, I have not been communicating with police, but somebody from the family, is kind of on that role. I just think, we understand that it's a process, and these things they take time. There's a lot of pressure, obviously, but they want to get it done right. And we're grateful for them for for the work that they do. It's not easy, and it's sometimes, scrutinized very heavily, but we trust their process that they're going to get this right.
I just wanted to tell our audience, Rob, that we were just looking at wedding video, and as I understand it, this was video that you, as a filmmaker, shot and produced. I mean, it's beautiful, and it's just so hard to believe that we're having this conversation, seeing the stunning work that you put together for this beautiful day of theirs. I know I speak for my audience as well when I say I hope that you can get some resolution and some justice in this, and I hope we can stay in touch on this.
Yes, thank you. We all appreciate it. And again, just thank you for the outpouring of love that we've seen. It's been just amazing for the entire family as we're trying to get through this tough time. So thank you.
Well, God bless you, and we'll be working on the story as well. Rob Misla, thank you for this.
Thanks.
We'll be right back.
Okay, and that's the end of that. Let me see if I found something else for us. Okay, here we go. The Nick Reiner arraignment.
Who signed on to represent Nick the day after his arrest as one of the most prominent lawyers in the country, a savvy criminal defense attorney who previously represented Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, Karen Reed, but his services do not come
This
cheap.
is Surviving the
Reiner's
Survivor.
finances are unknown.
Nick
But a
Reiner
retainer on a case
arraignment.
like this probably lands in the seven figures, with the cost of taking to trial well north of $1 million. So it's not just the legal issues; it's the how are you going to pay for this issue. And if that is true, that the Reiners have left everything to charity, and I don't know that it is, but for sure, money is a factor here. And that could be a plausible reason for why, if there was some kind of report that Alan Jackson could be stepping down. It is not corroborated. We have not corroborated. We don't know that to be the case, but money could certainly play a role, right, Joe?
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what the will did either, obviously. What I had seen, and I don't know that this is accurate either, was that Rob Reiner had said he wanted his children to be independent and therefore was not going to leave everything to them. That doesn't mean he left them nothing. If I had to guess, and it's a pure guess, I would guess that he hasn't completely left them with nothing in the will. And if he's worth $200 million, which is something I saw reported yesterday, then even if he only left them a fraction each, that's certainly a lot more money than most of us have.
Exactly.
And he also has some very wealthy friends who might be willing to kick in some money. If it's true that Rob Reiner and Michelle would not want their son to end up in prison for the rest of their life. And there's some stories out there swirling that that's what the family thinks. And I saw a report yesterday of an incarcerated felon in Texas that the Reiners sort of adopted and have kept in touch with. And he was quoted yesterday as saying, from what he knew of them, they would not want that result for their son. So if that's true, with all the money that's swirling around in other people's hands, you would think that paying for this defense would not be a problem for anyone.
And by the way, there's comments here that, and I don't know to what degree they have even any control, but Jake and Romy, the siblings, don't want to pay, don't want to use any of the money from the family to pay for this, which would not surprise me again. We talk about this as though it's like a fictional story, but these are real people, and again, I can't imagine what they're going through. It's got to be absolutely brutal. As we're waiting, that white sheet of paper there is very important. That's how they balance all the cameras, hence the white balance. So I'm thinking they usually do that right before something on camera is about to start. So we're probably going to get them exiting the court. Now, I've gone back through social media and have seen conflicting reports about whether the arraignment happened yet or not. Initially, they said it happened. Now we don't know. This is a camera/audio guy just giving an audio test here for all the camera guys who are connected there on the podium. But if you have questions for Joe, there's the sign man again. But if you have questions for Joe, please get them in here now. I'm going to scroll to the bottom of the triple Qs and see what's going on. If for some reason Joe Pacciuto, if for some reason Alan Jackson, for whether it's financial or otherwise, says I'm done, what happens to Nick Reiner right now? What happens to this case?
Well, they have to find another lawyer, obviously. And if he's got the money, either through some independent trust and a trustee that was appointed, which wouldn't surprise me if the Reiners had something like that set up in the will. I mean, they've been supporting, from all we know, supporting him for his whole life. He's never had a job. It would not surprise me at all that they had provided for something in the will for when they were no longer around and how Nick would be taken care of. The family members might kick in, friends might kick in. Ironically, if there is nothing provided for in the will and none of the family members want anything to do with this defense and none of the friends want to come forward, then he would be technically indigent and the state would have to pick up the tab.
And Joe Pacciuto, this is a great question. Can't any really good defense attorney handle this case? Do you really have to pay millions for a top defense attorney?
Yeah, well, the answer to that is yes and no. There's certainly many very, very fine defense lawyers who could handle the case, but the people who are very fine and can handle cases like this often are charging a fair amount of money. But certainly you don't have to get the high-profile lawyer who's done, Harvey Weinstein and the Reed trial and has gotten a lot of name recognition. You don't need somebody with that sort of a public face of being that good. And they're certainly among some of those, and maybe in Jackson himself, who would do it for a reduced fee anyway in order to get the public recognition out of it that might lead to other clients, down the track.
Someone said you get what you pay for, which is true. I'm also looking.
Yeah, but sometimes you get I don't know. You may get what you pay for, but you may pay for more than you need and get.
Yeah. And Joe, this happens a lot. People slip into saying, well, he's a kid, 32, because it's all relative. 32.
No, he's not a kid. He's a grown-ass man.
Very young. I'm sure, Joe, to you it seems.
Well, young in terms of chronological age, but certainly not young in the sense of what you might think of. He's not a teenager.
Hell no.
He's a man. And I think one of the things he's going to face, at least if I were on the jury, is this notion of, sure, maybe you got addicted to drugs and, I'll give you a pass on that because you shouldn't have tried them, but you tried them and you got addicted. But lots of people who are addicted don't go out and murder their mother and father. People with mental disease, don't go out and murder their parents. I mean, the ability to exercise control is still typically there for most of us.
Yeah. Joe, I know you're not a psychologist. That's my mom's department, but this continues to tug at my heart. It's just brutal when you think about it. But I really, the comment is, I really and truly hope Romy and Jake look after themselves. This is just so sad. What do they do, Joe? What do you think? I mean, you can really just lean on friends and go to a therapist to try to get through this. You've lost your parents.
And lean on each other. And they've got the older sister, the daughter from the first marriage. There must be extended family. Certainly there are close friends of the Reiners. I mean, she called Billy Crystal that night, considered him, I believe, an uncle. So there are lots of people to talk to and listen. They certainly can get professional help to try to get them through it. But, it's grief. They lost their parents. They lost their parents in a brutal way, and it's their brother who probably did it. I mean, I don't care who you're talking to, whether it's, your priest, rabbi, minister, psychologist, psychiatrist, grief counselor, your cousin, your uncle, your siblings, you go on and on and on. This is still a terrible thing, and it's not going to be easy to get through.
Yeah. From Rosie Burns, can you see a scenario where he's so medicated he can't speak coherently to mount a defense? I assume the judge is going to ask Nick Reiner, are you currently on medications? Do you understand what I'm saying? Will the judge ask those sorts of questions.
Right, and I don't know, Rosie Burns, I don't know enough about medication for psychiatric issues to know whether it is responsible medical treatment to give you a drug that's so potent that you aren't able to follow proceedings or understand what's going on. I mean, my layperson's instinct is that can't be right, that they've got you on such heavy drugs that you're essentially comatose in terms of being able to follow anything, but I don't know.
It is hard to believe. I think it is January 7th today, and I believe the crimes occurred on December 15th. So time waits for no one, and time is moving forward here. Right here, look at this. Mama, member for 12 months, so that went quickly. Here's an interesting question from our friend Rachel D. A Michigander living in San Diego. If he's found guilty, Joe, that's putting the cart ahead of the horse a little bit, but if he's found guilty and his parents did leave him money, is he legally entitled to it?
This is easy, no. In fact, there is a reasonable chance if they left him money directly that he might not be able to use it to fund his defense.
And I assume there's laws on the books that say if you kill somebody.
Yeah, there are, and some of this is out of my area where I know a whole lot, but I think part of it is the state law and insurance, and whether they wouldn't have to show by proof beyond a reasonable doubt that he was involved. It would be a lower standard, and they might be able to block the money going to him, even as I say, even to pay for the defense. But certainly if he's convicted, he wouldn't get it. Now, if he's acquitted by reason of insanity, I think then he would be entitled to the money.
That's interesting. I mean, and this gets into a whole other legal set of issues, but that's...
And those are all issues the jury will never hear.
Yeah. Eat the food Tina here. In my honest opinion, Nick is too dangerous to be let out ever. It certainly seems that way now. TMZ reporting, when attorney Alan Jackson appears in court Wednesday morning for Nick's arraignment, he will inform the judge he is no longer representing Nick. Fascinating. So that again...
Is TMZ
that's Harvey Levin.
What?
Yeah, TMZ's Harvey Levin.
He's the person who's had the two leaks that have come out so far, the schizophrenia and maybe the bad meds.
Yeah.
So I think if that's coming from that source, then I think it has a little more weight to it.
I think Alan Jackson is friendly.
Yeah.
Here it is, right on the front page of TMZ. It says, Rob and Michelle Reiner murders. Nick Reiner's attorney withdraws from the case. Nick, this is crossed the wires 5 minutes ago. Exactly.
Yeah.
Nick
it's coming from them, then I really do think there's weight to it because, as you say, they seem to have a relationship with Alan Jackson. And as I say, the two leaks that we know of, they reported.
It says Nick Reiner's lawyer. This is according to TMZ, everybody. So if it is incorrect, yell at them, not us. But according to TMZ, Nick Reiner's lawyer is off the case, TMZ has learned, and Nick will, at least for the time being, be represented by a public defender. Sources connected to the Reiner family with direct knowledge tell TMZ that when attorney Alan Jackson appears in court Wednesday morning for Nick's arraignment, he will inform the judge he is no longer representing Nick. One source says a public defender will step in for now and the case will be continued. Nick will not enter a plea. As for why Jackson is off the case, we're told the family will be releasing a statement as soon as the proceedings are over, and TMZ will post it. TMZ reported it is likely Nick will eventually plead not guilty by reason of insanity. He was diagnosed, this is all according to TMZ, by the way, not independently confirmed by Surviving the Survivor. He was diagnosed, they say, with a form of schizophrenia known as schizoaffective disorder. We're told his meds had sent him off the rails in the month before the murders. Jackson is coming off a huge victory in the Karen Reed trial in Boston, where she was found not guilty for allegedly killing her boyfriend. It's unclear if the public defender is a stopgap until another lawyer takes the case, or if the public defender will handle the case from this point forward. If Jackson speaks to the media after the hearing, TMZ will have it, but so will we. So screw TMZ and watch.
Well, as to whether the public defender will stay on or not, as I said before, if nobody's willing to pay, he's clearly indigent. He's never held a job in his life. I don't know that he owns anything on his own. That would mean that the public defender would stay on unless some other lawyer thinks that this is the kind of case that he or she would be willing to take on for either no or a very, very small fee, assuming that California allows a case like this to be farmed out to a private lawyer on a low fee. If you remember in the Sarah Boone case, she published a letter advertising for a lawyer to come represent her, and somebody did step forward to do it.
There was a question just now. Does the judge need to sign off on a change of lawyer? Can the judge say, "No, Mr. Jackson, you can't be released as his attorney"?
Yeah, but this is very early on in the case, so it's different if the lawyer in the middle of the trial says, "Hey, now I want out." The judge is not going to let you out unless there's some extraordinarily good reason. But here we're very much at the outset, and if it's the case that the client is saying, "I don't want this guy," then the client has the right to pick a lawyer of his own choice, and he's saying, "This lawyer is not the one that I want."
And here's a question: how would he qualify for a public defender? Just because he is the son of very, very rich people doesn't necessarily make him rich, right, Joe?
Yeah.
I mean, so do you need? I guess a different way of asking it: do you need to be indigent to qualify for?
He needs to be indigent, but it comes from an extraordinarily wealthy family. But the money is theirs, not his. And if they haven't left him anything in the will, and his family doesn't want to cover, and the friends don't want to cover, he is a 32-year-old man who has never held a job in his life. He's got no money. He's living on his father's property, rent-free. He doesn't have a house. He doesn't have a car that we know of. He has nothing. So he's indigent, even though the family is extraordinarily wealthy.
And keep in mind, at different points, he was actually homeless, living in the streets, because apparently, Rob and Michelle Reiner didn't want to help him because they wanted him to get his own help at that point. It was some tough love, but it just goes to show you what little he had, that he was actually living in the streets. But if you're just joining us off the very top of the show, we talked about this, and now it has come full circle that TMZ, not us, and look at this is harsh. I mean, look, TMZ is not garbage. You might think they're garbage, but they do break a lot of news. And I'm almost sure
I wouldn't trust TMZ, and I'm sorry, brother.
Harvey Levin.
Brother, I'm sorry. I wouldn't trust it.
AJ is representing another big case in California. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, he's representing the guy who ran over those 4 Pepperdine students and killed them all. But he was representing them before he decided to take this one on. It isn't as though that case came up and now he wants off this one. He knew then that he was going to be representing.
Y'all, the USMC is another oil tanker.
Interesting to hear the conversations are happening. That means that how it was described as the money, all profits would first come into the United States, into legitimate American banks. They're sort of invoking some private sector involvement here. And then that money eventually gets...
I'll go back to Nick Reiner in a second, y'all. Hold on.
With the discretion being to the United States, the president...
There's a lot going on.
...of that money, but saying that it would ultimately also benefit Venezuelans. A lot of questions still about that plan exactly, but what do we make of this?
Yeah, I think the mechanics of all that are still a bit of an open question, Savannah, and we know that that's going to be discussed as the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, meets with oil executives today and later this week as well. And there will be a meeting on Friday here at the White House where President Trump will meet with representatives from Chevron, from ExxonMobil, and from ConocoPhillips to discuss how some of this might actually work. We did get a little bit more detail from Caroline Levitt there, who said essentially that the oil, those initial 30 to 50 million barrels, will be arriving here at home, quote, very soon, she said. She said the U.S. government has already been marketing this crude oil in the global marketplace for the benefit of the U.S. And then, yes, I also picked up on that and think there are some questions about how this is going to work. The idea that the funds will be dispersed for the benefit of the American people and the Venezuelan people, at the discretion of the United States government. So that does require a lot of private sector engagement. And then there are also questions about just the timeline to all of this. Remember that President Trump sort of gave an indication to our own Kristen Welker that maybe this would happen in terms of rebuilding the oil infrastructure, getting this up to speed in about 18 months or so. So over the next year and a half, do oil executives agree with that timeline? Is that something that's feasible? How long is this going to take? But senior administration officials have told us that this is a process that has started immediately, it's underway, and will continue, quote, indefinitely. So I do think that that's notable. And I think, you had a White House and a press secretary here trying to explain, but really delve into this aspect of the oil strategy, which raises all these questions about what we were talking about earlier, Savannah, which is the capture of Nicolas Maduro, the indictment against him and his wife, doesn't mention oil, doesn't have to do with oil, right? It's focused on drug trafficking charges and other alleged crimes in that indictment. This is a completely different strategy that now the White House, the Trump administration overall, is very much focused on as what's going to happen as a result of changing and now deferring to the interim leader, Delcy Rodriguez, who is acting right now as the head of state, who is, according to the White House, according to Caroline Leavitt, cooperating and working with the U.S. on this plan for the oil. Savannah.
Monica Alba from the White House for us, wrapping up that press conference. We appreciate it, Monica. Thank you. We are also following breaking news out of Minneapolis, Minnesota right now, where a Department of Homeland Security official says a woman was shot in the face by ICE. That spokesperson said the incident was vehicle ramming related, and you're looking at live aerials from Minneapolis on your screen right now. Let's bring in NBC News senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley. Julia, what more do we know at this point about this incident?
Well, look, there seem to be two conflicting reports coming out of this incident right now, Savannah. Eyewitnesses on the ground are saying in viral social media videos that they say this woman was in her car when an officer tried to open the door, and then she was trying to leave the scene when the shot went off, and that they say that she was taken to the hospital after that. But what we're hearing from DHS is that she was using her vehicle as a weapon in a vehicle ramming incident, so that the officer would have had to fire in self-defense. Now, the actual video of the event has not yet surfaced. Of course, we're looking for that from any aerial or, say, doorbell cam footage surveillance that might have been in the area. But you could already see this is gaining traction in this Minneapolis neighborhood. People coming out. This could turn into a protest situation. And Savannah, this is as ICE has significantly ramped up their presence in this area. They began operations about a month ago in Minneapolis. Then they surged to over 2,000 agents and officers in Minneapolis just this week. That began on Sunday. They've made roughly 1,400 arrests so far over the course of that month-long operation. And Border Patrol just began operations on the ground in Minneapolis there today as well. And then with an incident like this has only further escalated tension. Savannah.
Julia Ainsley reported for us on this breaking development right now. A DHS spokesperson confirming that a woman was shot in the face during an ICE-involved incident. As Julia just laid out there, a lot of questions we still have. She'll bring us anything new that she gets. We're actually going to listen in right now to our affiliate coverage there in Minneapolis, our affiliate station CARE, to get more information about this unfolding event. Let's listen in.
We'll get more information when it's available, but obviously, they're looking at things right now. But we've seen a lot of elected officials out here, whether it was Jason Chavez a second ago, or Mohammed a second ago. We've heard about a press conference that might be happening at noon that we're trying to work to get a little more information on. But as of right now, that's kind of where we're at. I think it's almost an eye for.
I think back at the station, you guys have heard from Governor Walz' statement posted on X, his public safety team working to gather information on an isolated shooting this morning. And they said that more will be coming later. And like I said, Mayor Fry and Brian O'Hara have been on the scene right at the original location for the last at least half an hour.
Whoa,
Prayer
what?
vigil going on right now with
Shoot.
rabbis and pastors at the original scene. They're down there praying right now together as a group. I'm going to go check in with them. Several of them have been here the entire time.
I'm not surprised that I shot somebody. I am not surprised.
Assistant Chief Kitty Blackwell, you know, eventually with a crowd this size, they're gonna want to hear from him on exactly what's going on, because people are just operating in a vacuum with little to no information right now, and so they're coming up with their own theories and narratives. But it's, you know, you guys saw the car, obviously, Portland is a one-way street, that car's going the opposite direction, so obviously something happened over here. Portland is almost like a highway in this part of the city. This is where I live.
From our info, you can see it over the, we're standing on a hill here.
Yeah.
You can kind of see it looks like it's crashed into that light pole as well.
So Jana and Ian, it sounds like that officials are saying noon for a press conference. So you got about a half hour.
Yeah, noon is. Yeah, that's what we've heard from some of the officials that have been out here a little bit. You know, there is a lot of people here right now, so we're just kind of losing them in the crowd. But I'm going to try and track them down here in just a second to see if we can figure out a little more information. Try to get an update on what happened out here.
All right, why don't you guys go keep reporting?
Over here and see what Chico O'Hara said.
There you go. You can go keep reporting. We'll check back in with you in just a minute. Right now, we got to go to Sammy Salina, who has been tracking a bunch of statements from elected officials, local government, etc., to kind of give us a layout of what's happening there from the reaction point of view. A lot of Democrats right now. I haven't seen any elected official Republicans chime in.
Yeah, I've been checking up with Minnesota's top Republicans on X, trying to see if they're tweeting about this. I haven't seen anything yet, but in the last hour, they have been tweeting about fraud. Now, the city of Minneapolis said on X, we are aware of shooting involving federal law enforcement near East 34th Street and Portland Avenue. They're asking people to avoid the area. Mayor Jacob Fry on X said, I'm aware of a shooting involving an ICE agent at 34th Street in Portland. The presence of federal immigration enforcement agents is causing chaos in our city. He is demanding that ICE leave the city immediately and that they are standing rock solid with our immigrant and refugee communities. Robin Wansley on Facebook said, Ward 2, dear neighbors, I am on the ground with other city council members near Portland Avenue, and 33rd residents witnessed federal agents shoot an observer. The resident was transported to a hospital. I will keep you updated as information comes out. We also have the governor on X, Walls. My public safety team is working to gather information on an ICE-related shooting this morning. We will share information as we learn more. In the meantime, I ask folks to remain calm. We also have Representative Ilhan Omar on X. I'm following news of a reported shooting of a legal observer by ICE agents in South Minneapolis. I'll continue to monitor the situation closely. She goes on to say, ICE must stop terrorizing our communities and leave our city. We also have Hennepin County Sheriff on X saying we are aware of an incident that occurred this morning and that they are on scene. We just have a lot of, as you pointed out, a lot of Democrats reacting right now, waiting for Republican response, and just trying to see what other officials say. And we're trying to see what NPD says. And it looks like we got word coming into my email right now that there will likely be a press briefing around 12:15 today. So in the next hour, hopefully we'll hear more from officials and get some verification on who this victim is and what exactly happened.
Right.
Right. Well, Sammy, too, just circling back to some of the statements that we are receiving, Robin Wansley from Minneapolis Ward 2 City Council is saying that, dear neighbors, I am on the ground with other council members near Portland Avenue and 33rd Street East. In this tweet, they say, residents witnessed federal agents shoot an observer. And so this, again, is something that has been developing by the moment. We are working to gather as many facts as we can for you and to bring you that correct information. We are not speculating here. We are going and leaning in with as many hard facts as we can. We have multiple reporters at the scene right now. We have our chopper up in the air giving us visuals. That is the car that Gordon Severson says that officers have been surrounding, and you can see that the caution tape is taped off near that area. We have witnessed them put up barricades now. They have the gates out there. There are officers and law enforcement in helmets, and you know the situation it's ebbing and it's flowing. They're doing our best to bring you accurate information.
That's right. That's right. What we can see is what we can see. And is it the black car in the back or the red car in the front? We had a camera on the other side. And one of those cars has bullet holes in the windshield. So you can see that is essentially the scene of the shooting that happened this morning. And now, Gordy, you're standing by. We haven't checked that in roughly 2 minutes or so. It looks like the crowd is roughly the same size. City officials and the mayor are asking people not to come out there. The governor's calling for calm. It appears to be calm at this point, which is good. Gordy, what can you tell us?
Yeah, definitely calmed down the last couple of minutes. Quietest that it's been since we have been here. I'm looking over, our shoulder, and I'm seeing, one or two what appears to be like protester organizers are addressing the crowd as we speak, and everyone is listening to them right now. We see a line of police officers, sheriff's deputies lined up, ready to go. You mentioned the fencing. That fencing has been set up and is now in position. They're making sure that they keep people out of the crime scene. Now, I wanted to show you, you mentioned the car earlier. This is just down the street from where everyone is set up. This is where the crime scene, where the incident happened this morning. There are a few FBI investigators here now working and processing the scene. You can see they're drawing some sort of a tape to kind of create measurements. That SUV is the vehicle that has the bullet hole through the front windshield on the driver's side, and then the two other vehicles, the white car and the red car, also appear to be connected. Both of them are damaged in some sort of a crash, and that's what we're seeing, and that's what investigators are now working on here at the scene.
Hey, Gordon, I got a question for you. Earlier we were talking with Jana that pointed out Portland Avenue is a very busy area, and Jana mentioned this is a one-way right here. Can you confirm that for us?
I cannot, because when we got here, all the cars were parked here. There was no traffic. There was no driving. Any vehicles coming by.
It's a one-way area.
Yeah,
we
just got the confirmation.
Okay.
And so, Gordon, if you could go back to those cars right there. Those cars are faced the opposite direction. So I just want to reiterate that, as this is a one-way, and those cars are turned around in the opposite direction. And that is something that just stood out to me. And when Jana was speaking about this, we all know Portland is a very busy street. It's a main thoroughway in that neighborhood. And so closing down that area as well for traffic reasons, is going to cause a lot of people to question why. Again, can you just walk us through what you're seeing as far as the people that have gathered in the area?
Yeah, so when we first got here, the scene, everyone was kind of located down the street over on 33rd in Portland, and then everyone kind of slowly moved over here closer to the scene, and past the scene actually to 34th, and this is where everyone has been setting up. All of the public officials, police leadership has been here. This is where they've been setting up the barricades. One thing that we haven't talked about here that could be a factor if this continues all day is the roads and the sidewalks here are super icy. I've almost fallen a couple times. I helped a woman who fell over and helped her out. So if we are going to be having hundreds of people here and potentially interactions, engagements with police officers, we could have, we could potentially have to have some ambulances coming in here, and that could become a problem with how many people are here, how many cars, how many roads are blocked off. It is super icy here, so I hope that does not become a factor over the next couple of hours.
Yeah, that is certainly a concern. Gordon, you mentioned that you saw some people in the crowd being sprayed by law enforcement. Is there any injuries to the people that have gathered in the area at all?
Not that we've heard of. We've seen a few people that after the spray was sent out, they were kind of sitting here in front of this green and white home.
I'll pause this for a second.
Or maybe in Mexico. I don't remember anything in that letter, but in any event, the guards at the jail found the letter when they did I think it was a routine search of the cell. She had put it under a pillow or something. And the question is whether it's admissible. If it's admissible, it's pretty damning, I think, as to her, what appears to be trying to coach witnesses as to what they needed to say on the stand to help exculpate her.
Yeah, a lot of interesting issues there with evidence, being brought into discovery early on in that case, including search warrants and all sorts of different things that they've been arguing about. Now, this is another interesting comment. We were just talking about Ashley Buzzard, the mother accused of murdering her own daughter, and people are talking now that she is likely schizophrenic as well. So we've heard that word here with Nick Reiner, and now we're hearing it with Ashley Buzzard. So it's just tragic. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to say it. Someone here says Nick was born bad, the bad seed. Who knows? I don't know how you determine that, but he did something awful. I know that, and I have a feeling. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that Nick Reiner is regretting this? Do you think he's feeling remorseful, especially if he's, I don't know, gone through some sort of withdrawal and he's sobering up? I imagine he's going to feel pretty bad about killing his two parents, but let me know what you guys think. I still hit like and watch. Always a great show. Thank you. Sign Man is still there. So Joe Patuto, now the waiting game is on here. We're waiting to see when Alan Jackson arrived at the top of the morning show.
I don't know about you, but I've been waiting since 11:30.
Yeah, 11:30. It is now, it's been an hour and 16 minutes that we've been waiting here. And we are expecting, by the way, this person said hello to an Italiana, from one Italiana to another, Joe Patuto. She became a YouTube member. So.
Okay, nothing much there. Let's go back to this ICE incident.
In the alley, I heard two gunshots and a car crash, a really hard car crash, and then I heard yelling. And the next thing you know, I got in my car, I came out here, and I came through here with nothing but ICE agents. And as I'm driving by, it was a red truck, and nothing but the airbags and full of blood, and there was a body on the street. There was a woman. They shot a mother this morning trying to flee from ICE agents. That's what happened. That's what I can tell you what I saw.
All right, that's what she's saying that she saw when she got there. It's another piece of the puzzle we're trying to put together right now. Nobody's point of view can be discounted, especially when we're talking about an incident like this. We do know that ICE raids are happening all across the city right now. I received multiple text messages this morning from people reporting to me that ICE was raiding several daycares in South Minneapolis. And we know from Secretary Noem that 2,000 extra agents were sent here.
Calling it the largest DHS operation ever happening. And so the Secretary of Homeland Security has been in Minneapolis this week, actually. And again, just to reiterate what Chris said, 2,000 federal agents were sent to this area just this week.
And I want to, we're just getting this statement. So we've heard from a lot of Democrats, local elected officials, etc. This is from DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin. She says, quote, we just got this in an interview, quote, today, ICE officers in Minneapolis were conducting targeted operations when rioters began blocking ICE officers, and one of these violent rioters weaponized her vehicle, attempting to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them, an act of domestic terrorism. She goes on to say, an ICE officer fearing for his life, the lives of his fellow law enforcement, and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training and saved his own life and that of his fellow officers. She goes on to say, the alleged perpetrator was hit and is deceased. Thankfully, the ICE officers who were hurt are expected to make full recoveries. This is the direct consequence of constant attacks and demonization of our officers by sanctuary politicians who fuel and encourage rampant assaults on our law enforcement, who are facing 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats. This is an evolving situation, and we will give the public more information as soon as it becomes available. End quote.
That was the first time that we were hearing from DHS. And again, just to reiterate that statement, they confirm that the alleged perpetrator was hit and is dead.
Right.
Coming up at 12:15, we are expecting a press conference. The Minneapolis police chief, the Minneapolis mayor, and some other elected officials.
And this is very important. So this is their side. This is what DHS is claiming. They're claiming that they were conducting a raid, and we know this has been happening all over Minneapolis, particularly this morning, at an increased rate. And they say rioters began blocking officers, and one of them weaponized her vehicle, attempting to run over agents. That is the claim from DHS. As for the increases of assaults against their officers, they keep giving this number, 1,300% increase. And I emailed them 2 weeks ago to ask where they got that number from.
That number is cap.
Behind that number, and I never heard back. So I don't know the context of that number, but we know things are certainly turned up, and you don't have to look hard to find it.
And these types of raids have been happening all across the country. We have actually an NBC correspondent, Judy Ainsley, that is standing by right now. Judy, I know you understand how these situations have been developing all over the United States. Here we are in Minneapolis right now. Can you share a little bit of information with us and just your knowledge of exactly what you have been hearing and witnessing?
Well, definitely. I mean, I got that statement from Tricia McLaughlin, and I will say this is faster than what we would have seen in previous administrations or from previous fatal incidents involving law enforcement. Often there would be a long investigation before this kind of information would come out. But in these incidents where we have seen ICE firing, as we did in Chicago, into a man's car, and another incident that was similar, we get details very quickly from DHS, oftentimes before we can actually reconcile that with what we're hearing on the ground. And I know some witnesses on the ground that you've been speaking to, as well as witnesses who have been on social media, have said that this was someone who was attempting to flee from ICE. So while we're still getting all of those details together, what DHS is saying is that this was an ICE officer who was basically fighting for his or her life and that had to fire these shots into a car to keep this driver from coming forward and ramming officers and impeding this operation. Again, more details we're hoping to get. But this is not the first time that we've had incidents of ICE claiming that someone is ramming their vehicle. And as you've stated, we're seeing this number, 8,000% increase in death threats. There's no raw data to accompany that, although we have definitely heard of more protesters, more people who gather as they surge operations in places like this. Let's also just talk about what's changed in Minneapolis on Sunday and what's changed today. As we reported, there are more than 2,000 ICE officers that came to Minneapolis as of Sunday. They joined those who were already on the ground doing increased operations that began earlier this month. With the 2,000, that included people who were doing investigations into fraud that followed those claims that have largely been debunked by Minnesota state agencies claiming that Somalis were behind daycare fraud, that they were getting money fraudulently. So they sent HSI agents to also begin investigating possible fraud in Minneapolis, as well as 1,500 deportation officers. And then today, Border Patrol became part of this. Border Patrol was involved in Chicago, Los Angeles, Charlotte, and most recently New Orleans. And they are known to use some more aggressive tactics to do wide sweeps. ICE has not been involved in many of the incidents that have gone viral when it comes to shooting into car windows, when it comes to basically taking people out of cars, and when they've been going after protesters. A lot of those videos that you've seen previously across the country, those incidents, that has involved Border Patrol. This involves ICE. ICE is by and large more trained in how to handle operations in major metropolitan areas, how to handle protesters. Not something that Border Patrol would typically encounter when they are in traffic. That
Get out here with that mess. ICE and Border Patrol are one and the same. What the HELL are you talking about?
That we would see from ICE. But in this case, DHS is very clear. This was an ICE officer involved shooting. They did not specifically say in the statement that this was a shot to the face, although that is very clear from what you all have been picking up on the ground, and that they say that this person is deceased, which goes against some of the earlier statements coming from eyewitnesses that said this person may have been taken to the hospital for medical care At this point, this person was deceased. It also seems that there were at least some injuries, perhaps only to one, perhaps to multiple ICE officers, but they say that those people are expected to make a full recovery. So, and do the details as we know them. Of course, we'll continue to push and learn more, but it's coming at a time of escalating tensions in Minneapolis. And as you saw at the end of that statement, they are blaming sanctuary policies. And this has been a continued feud between this administration and Minnesota's governor, Tim Walz, where they're blaming him not only for fraud that has been committed in the state, although that fraud was also investigated under the Biden Justice Department. And the governor Walz has asked for more resources from the state legislature to crack down on fraud. They're blaming him for that, as well as for immigration in the Minneapolis area. And they blame the sanctuary policies that have led to more immigration. Of course, that sanctuary policies have nothing to do with why someone may show up and protest an issue or an incident like this where they're taking operations. We also don't know for sure. They're saying this was a protester. It doesn't seem this was someone they were trying to target with an arrest, but that this person was actually protesting is what they're saying. So again, as we get more details, we will let you know.
And Julie, I have just one question for you. Again, if you could just reiterate, it stood out to me when you said that ICE is trained for more of these situations. The Border Patrol, you say, is not. And we do have Border Patrol agents here in Minneapolis just as of recently. Can you elaborate on that again?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for both Border Patrol and ICE, they go through extensive training. They are told that they can stop people based on a reasonable suspicion and arrest them based on probable cause, so they're violating the country's immigration laws. But I've been in ICE training where they practice things like what to do if they're going into an apartment building where there are children involved, how to tell people to how to make sure a child is taken care of if a parent is arrested, how to de-escalate, just as local police would be trained, and also what to do really to be able to tell the difference between when life is being threatened versus not. Border Patrol, of course, does get some of that training too, but by and large, based on the time I've spent, many years spent doing ride-alongs with the Border Patrol and ICE more frequently encounters this kind of situation as they operate in major metropolitan cities and areas, whereas Border Patrol typically is in more remote areas where they may be doing rescues of someone who has gotten into a life-threatening situation as they try to cross the border. So just delineating the differences between these agencies, and also that a lot of the issues that we've seen previously, other videos that may raise questions about who's being arrested, who's being targeted, and why, and if rights are being violated, especially when there are people being pulled out of their cars. That typically has been Border Patrol, especially from what we saw in Chicago in October.
So, Julia, first of all, thank you so much for your perspective and your in-depth reporting on the facts here. It is indispensable to us in our coverage, and we're grateful for the partnership. Second of all, my question to you is about how many people have been arrested. You have Operation Metro Surge, right? It's ICE enhancing the operation in the Twin Cities here. And Secretary Noem had a Fox News interview, I think on Tuesday, it was yesterday, where she said that more than 1,500 crooks and creeps, murderers, rapists, pedophiles, and gang members, end quote, have been arrested as a part of this siege. The problem with saying things like this is we have no check and balance on that. We don't know who they're arresting yet. We don't know the crimes that they're accused of. We haven't seen the warrants. So it's difficult for the public to just take her word as it is without double checking. What are you seeing on your end with investigating how many people they're arresting and who they actually are?
Well, I can tell you the difference between when we get those numbers very quickly, as we did from Secretary Noem, as I heard today from DHS spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin, roughly 1,400 so far have been arrested in the Minneapolis area, going back to when ICE began immigration-related arrests there earlier in December. But what happens later is we're able to, through sourcing and through data that we try very hard to obtain, it's not readily publicly available, as we try to get breakdowns of who had criminal convictions. And based on national data, over 2025, since Trump first took office, through really the end of that fiscal year, so getting into October would have been the cutoff. But of the people who were arrested between January 20th and October 1st of 2025, roughly 1/3 had absolutely no prior criminal conviction. 1/3 had pending criminal charges, and about another third would have had criminal charges. And so that does paint a picture of just how broad this has become. Trump came into office under the promise to arrest the worst of the worst, and often the people that Americans are witnessing being arrested, taken away, don't seem to fit that description. Their only crime may be being in the United States illegally, which is a civil violation, not even a crime. It is, of course, a crime to cross the border illegally, and the United States has the right to arrest and deport anyone who has overstayed their visas in the country illegally. But there are paths to avert deportation, such as the asylum system. And we've seen time and time again, people show up thinking they're following the process they're supposed to follow, going to court hearings, checking in with their ICE officers, and instead their cases have been cut off at that point, dismissed, their case for asylum, and they're arrested at that point. That's another way that these numbers are often boosted. And then I will say, just because someone is arrested doesn't mean they're deported. ICE and Border Patrol has both arrested people where they find that they are American citizens or that they do have a legal pathway that they're pursuing to stay in the United States, and they end up being released, which is why deportation numbers often are much lower than the arrest numbers. So sometimes there can be a big splash in a community, but the actual numbers of those who are eligible for deportation are much smaller than those who are arrested.
Yeah, Julia, thank you so much for your expertise in this. We really appreciate you bringing us all these facts. We'll let you go for now, and we are going to go to our Ian Russell, who is at the scene. Ian, we last checked in with you about 15 minutes ago. I understand that you have some new information for us.
Yeah, we were walking down this way because we thought that there was going to be another ICE situation, some more ICE agents, things like that. It sounds like there might have been some conflicting information, but the crowds moved down this way and then now moved back towards 34th and Portland. But as we were walking down here, ran into this gentleman, Khalid here. And Khalid, you were telling me you're holding something that you said that the ICE agents, they fired towards the crowd. Is that right?
Yeah, the tear gas. So they were trying to disperse the crowd. And then I think that's when the situation got a little bit hectic and chaotic. And then multiple rounds of these were deployed at the crowds, and a few of those hit actual individuals, and this was the one that was hit right on the ground right next to me.
And what's this on your hands?
The pepper spray. First they started with the pepper spray, and then when that didn't work and it wasn't effective to clear the clouds out of the way, they started using tear gas.
And was this the interaction that happened in that alleyway?
Yes, in the alleyway, yeah.
So we saw that just a second ago.
Yeah.
It started with them kind of pushing just cars and things like that. Back and forth, pushing and snowballs being thrown, things like that.
Yes.
What were you, clearly you were close by.
Yeah, I was close by because I came from the other side and I see the commotion and I recognized someone who was getting pepper sprayed and I was trying to help them, and that's when, as I was trying to help that person, they started pepper spraying me and that got to me, and then as soon as we tried to cross the other side of the road, it when they started deploying these tear gases on us.
And you and I were talking just a second ago about being here. I know you weren't here when this actually happened this morning. You were here just afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, walk me through that kind of situation.
So I received multiple calls and text messages from individuals, community organizations, and organizers and advocates that said that someone was shot off of 3rd, 4th, and Portland. And then as soon as I got that news, I was here within 10 minutes of that calls and text messages after I received that, yeah.
What did you see since you've been here?
I have actually observed the car that was the victim was in. I have seen the headrest had blood stains, and then the bullet hole through the window. So it's disturbing to actually see that, how someone actually his life was taken. The very moment it was taken, it's literally displayed on the public road. So it's very sad. My heart goes off to her family and everyone and her loved ones as well.
I appreciate you stopping and talking with us. I know the crowd has sort of moved a little bit further back down toward that main intersection of 34th and Portland. Guys, we're going to head that way and see what's going on down that way.
All right, thank you, Ian. Appreciate you. We got a Council on American Islamic Relations press conference is coming up shortly that we will toss to. We have a briefing with city and elected officials at 12:15 that we will get to shortly. But first, we're going to go to Sammy Selena. You have some new video for it?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of just combing through this video. That's honestly hard to watch. It appears to be taken from a man who is on his porch, and he is just, yes, if you want to take a look here. He's just...
No, I'm good. Do you have a microphone now?
I think I do.
Oh,
yeah,
down,
I do.
Good.
Is it work okay?
You're good. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
If you need me to stand by Chris, I can. We're good now. Okay, we're good. So it's taken by a man who is on the porch. We see the cars that we've been looking at, those crushed up cars, and that red vehicle. And it appears that ICE agents are kind of filtering around that vehicle. The man says, "Oh, I don't want to show this to Facebook because it appears to be a person who's unconscious." Then he says they just killed this lady in this car. Again, we're trying to verify exactly what happened. We've seen that's the car, Chris, right? That red vehicle, where there's a bullet through that windshield. The man, it's just kind of recording, and right now, this particular video, it does not look like aid is being rendered to that person. A man comes up yelling at ICE agents saying, "I'm a doctor, I'm a physician. If there's someone here that can pronounce this woman clinically dead," they tell the man to back up at that point. This video goes on for a few minutes here until we hear the ambulance that's coming. Then we see paramedics come and pull that woman out of the car. She appears to be very, very much injured. They don't spend a lot of time on her while she's on the ground, and they eventually take that person away.
So this is video, it's on X right now, it appears to be legitimate, it is the immediate aftermath, correct? It's not the shooting itself.
It's not the shooting itself. We don't know exactly when the shooting took place in relation to this video, how soon this person got out there and started recording.
Right.
But yeah, it appears to be the immediate aftermath. It only looks like ICE agents are.
I'm Gabby Schwartz here in Los Angeles, where we are monitoring several breaking news stories all happening at the same time as you've just been watching. We are trying to learn more on the ICE-related shooting that just happened during some sort of enforcement operation in Minneapolis. We know one person has been shot and killed by ICE officers. The Department of Homeland Security saying the shooting was in response to someone ramming their car. We are awaiting a press conference on the ground any minute now. Meanwhile, here in Los Angeles, Nick Reiner, the son of filmmaker Rob Reiner, just appeared in court on what was supposed to be an arraignment hearing where there's been a flurry of legal activity. We're still learning more as we speak, but it appears as though Reiner's high-profile lawyer, Alan Jackson, is now off the case. The arraignment has been postponed until February 23rd. Reiner is charged with 2 counts of murder and death of his parents. The judge did allow cameras in the courtroom. We had just received that video from what happened during the arraignment. That's what you're seeing played here on the side of your screen. And we're going to try to show you that as it comes in now.
Our parents we are here to issue the money. We have the floor of a report.
Councilmember Ken's statement, I don't think that that's a picture of the body attachment. I too will stay by the jurisdiction. We're not necessarily waiting any objection we ultimately may make, but I think it's mine because it doesn't matter. I don't see the impact of having a court order issued against an individual in this circumstance.
Thank you, Your Honor, and just to be clear, we do also recall. And so the attitude we need numbers of 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 those the court will issue body attachment to the shoulder of the company court and
We have no objection to the council's representation to the fact that graciously submitted to jurisdiction with regard to 410. I think that's appropriate.
once again, the court will issue the full review 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 until the return date. And so the court will seal that list as well.
We'd ask that the court seal it specifically because it is ongoing defense investigator data or evidence that we recover when we get our counsel on behalf of Mr. Reiner gets. And that is discoverable. We'll comply with all, or counsel comply with all discovered obligations at that time.
Address the council request to provide a copy to the people.
That's the point. We think that should not be done because that would implicate ongoing investigative efforts by the defense. And it would compromise Mr. Reiner's right to a fair trial and his right to maintain his investigation with some level of confidence or confidentiality.
So that is not going to seal the court on your case. And how else was that?
No, at this time, I, on behalf of Person Jackson, Quinn, and Mr. Reiner's understanding, consent
for the record, based on the conversation that we've had in chambers, and the explanation that we provided to the court in chambers, we feel that we have no choice at this juncture but to withdraw as counsel has to be removed. The public defender's office has been notified. We've had conversations with them. They are here. They're staff. They're ready to take over. My understanding is they're ready to be appointed immediately.
Really agree with the public defender's office. That is correct. So the court will is, and so that from Mr. Reed's counsel record and the court appointed the public defender's office to review it, Mr. Reiner. Thank you. Current counsel can order any item that
We will absolutely comply with that regarding the government communications with that.
Your Honor, there is a protective order issued by the court in place regarding the handling of discovery, order that remaining in place for now, and we'll serve a copy of that on the public defender's office, along with every
yes, the court will order that down. That will
Mr. Williams raises a very sage point. I want the protective order not to provide our discovery to anybody else. That would text providing information only to Mr. Reed for office. I can be in full compliance with
the people any response to that request?
No problem. I believe the protective order spells out that it covers Mr. Jackson for the law and success account.
Thank you.
Provide everything to Mr. Reed. Back on the record, Nick Reiner, case number 25 CJC 009. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. Lee Bailey, representing the people of the state of California.
Thank you.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, we'd ask to put over the arraignment one last time in February of 2017.
Thank you, and I will work with the green to get a discovery prior to that date.
I'll take any waiver. We have a constitutional statutory right to receive the arraignment. Your counsel, Ms. Green, from the public defender's office, is requesting that your arraignment be continued to February 23rd, 2026. And this department can waive your right to be arraigned today so that your matter may be continued to February 23rd, 2026 for arraignment. An intelligent waiver of his right to speak arraignment and that his counsel of record to implement a right if not waiver for arraignment in this department February 23rd, 2026. The arraignment is at noon now. Okay, thank you. That one, I'll live it.
You were just watching what we just received out of the courtroom here in Los Angeles. Let's bring in NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Molas, who can help us make sense of the stepping down of a very high-profile attorney on this case. And Chloe, if we have you, I'm sure you were watching that as well, trying to listen to everything that was being said in there. But it seemed as though whatever the reason for Alan Jackson to step down from this case, that was told to the judge potentially in chambers here, but not publicly. What do you make of this?
Gotti, this is incredibly significant and not something that I don't think any of us saw coming today, because now this arraignment is going to be postponed for a third time. We know that when Alan Jackson, when he entered the courtroom, he then had a meeting in chambers. This is behind closed doors with the other attorneys, with the judge. We don't know what was said, but he did say this. He said, "I have no choice but to step down of counsel of record." So as you saw, Nick Reiner will now be represented by a public defender. Her name is Kimberly Green. So this arraignment now being moved to February 23rd. So now this is being delayed a second time here. And, you know, we were wondering if Nick Reiner was going to enter a plea, and he has not yet. And at the center of all of this, Gotti, and you've been on the ground doing some really great reporting here, is, you know, his mental health really being called into question. We know that he is not on suicide watch. Nick Reiner, NBC News, had learned that that had been removed yesterday, that he was not going to be wearing the smock that he had been wearing before. And so previously, we know that Alan Jackson has said that he needed.
Okay, so Alan Jackson is no longer the lawyer.
Reiner, he said that they were procedural. We don't know exactly what they were evaluating, but again, that is something that will potentially come up at the next arraignment, depending on how he pleads.
Claire Malas, thank you so much. Spring at NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. He's also a criminal defense attorney. Danny, one other thing that struck me was hearing Nick Reiner. We didn't see a video of him, but we heard Nick Reiner saying that he waived his right to a speedy arraignment here when they were asking him if he was okay with the date in February. But again, to what Chloe was just talking about, when it comes to his mental state, we only have that sentence that he said to judge where he stands right now and in his mental state, which is almost nothing. But that is going to play such a big role in this case, regardless of what we see going forward, right?
We can't gauge anything from the few words he says in court, nor can we gauge anything from the photographs and the podcasts that he may have appeared on. The bottom line is this, is that his defense counsel, whether it was Alan Jackson or the public defender now, has to consider the possibility of a not guilty by reason of insanity. But here's the thing. In California, the mere fact that you may have been using drugs and alcohol does not create an insanity defense. The mere fact that you may have been temporarily under the influence of drugs is not sufficient for an insanity defense. So this is something, by the way, and the mere fact that you have mental illness does not automatically mean you have the insanity defense. So this is a very difficult decision. Whether or not the defendant wanted another continuance of the arraignment, it is critical to decide how they want to enter a plea and whether they want to enter a plea of not guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity or both.
A complex case has just gotten even more complicated. I also want to bring in NBC News legal analyst Misty Maris. Misty, when it comes to some of the different options that are now in front of a potential public defender here, but possibly some other counsel that steps in, what are the options that Reiner has?
So there are many reasons why this public defender said, I need more time in order to assess next steps before entering a plea. And that's because an assessment has to be made on several issues. One, looking at Reiner's mental state right now, is there a need to have a competency proceeding? Meaning, does an expert need to step in and weigh whether or not Reiner understands the nature of the charges against him and can participate in his own defense? That's looking at his mental state at this moment during these proceedings. Also, they have to think about whether or not they're going to enter a not guilty plea, not guilty by reason of insanity, try and work with prosecutors to engage in some other.
Well, I had to do something with
all of that is going back in time and looking at Reiner's mental state at the time the murders occurred. We don't know where the defense is going to go, but the first step is to get as much information from a defense perspective, mental state evidence, to make that assessment and to ultimately determine how to defend this case.
Yeah, that public defender may be starting from square one at this point. Missy Maris, thank you so much. Let's go back now to Minnesota, where Minneapolis mayor, the police chief, and other city officials are set to hold a news conference on that shooting involving ICE agents that turned deadly. The Department of Homeland Security says a woman died after being faced by ICE. It was vehicle ramming related. Let's listen back into our Minneapolis affiliate, Carol Evans' coverage.
Okay. Thank you. As soon as we get set up and ready to go live down there at City Hall, we're going to take that press conference in its entirety on air here, as well as on our Plus channel, as we've been doing so for about the last hour. Gordon Severson, thank you so much. It appears that the crowd has remained about the same size, and that's a good thing. When we first came on the air, there was some certain panic in that intersection. There were people throwing ice balls and snowballs at law enforcement there, and there was a mix of federal law enforcement and local police and deputies from the county in that area trying to preserve that scene and calm the crowd down. So we saw some of that CS gas that was deployed, and thankfully nothing has escalated there, which we're happy to report and happy to watch. We don't know exactly what to attribute that to. Maybe it was the local leaders being out there. Maybe it was the federal agents leaving. We don't know. But the crowds have remained about the same. As the city officials have said, do not go to that intersection. You're not going to do anything good there right now. In fact, Julie Nelson joining us now on the anchor desk here. What we heard earlier from Mayor Jacob Fry was that he wanted ICE to leave the city entirely. In fact, he ordered them to leave the city, which I don't know if he has the authority. There's been a lot of strong words after another devastating.
I ain't got no business really being there.
Here in the Twin Cities. This is South Minneapolis. This is 34th Street and Portland Avenue, where about 9 or 10 o'clock, we don't even have the exact time yet, a person was shot by federal law enforcement, which we've confirmed. It's in dispute whether the woman driving that car was trying to flee or the officer using the car. We've heard both stories. Just being weaponized. There's video being spread around on social media that appears to be legitimate video. We have not gone through it perfectly yet, so we want to make sure we cross the T's and dot our I's before we put anything on the air. And we are expecting a press conference here momentarily. Julie Nelson, welcome to the desk.
Thank you. I've been watching the coverage. I did appreciate the fact that you pointed out, we're going to hear from a lot of people who may have witnessed things. People have strong feelings on both sides of this. And it's important to just take a beat, take a moment until we can get the facts. And we're hoping to learn some of those facts coming up in the press conference today. We have been reporting that this is the largest surge of ICE agents, that there have been skirmishes between officers and agents and protesters before. I think in the back of all of our minds, there was fear that something like this could happen. We know there are, 1,500 agents and 600 Homeland Security investigators in Minneapolis right now, sent here in large part to respond to the Somali fraud taking place in the Medicaid reimbursement programs.
But what you have underneath this whole thing is a blanket of a lack of transparency and fear. And that's just a fact. I'm not blaming anybody, but people don't know exactly what's happening. We talked to the NBC reporter about what the people that have been arrested and what they've been arrested for. And she said a third of them have had no criminal history prior then crossing illegally. And so that's not what the administration is saying. It's not what they're selling.
Well, we know yesterday, for example, DHS did put out on social media a statement that they had made more than 1,000 arrests and that they were the worst of the worst. And they did have pictures and names and charges that these people that they said they arrested had been charged with or convicted of. We have been working, we just want you to know, to verify those faces, their identities, and their criminal histories. It's unclear to us if that list, if you saw it yesterday on social media, it's unclear to us if those were arrests made here in Minneapolis. But I do want to be clear, they have released information, but it's incredibly hard to verify because some of the records that they're referring to perhaps the crimes maybe didn't even take place in the United States of America. It could be Ecuador, it could be other countries that these people are coming from. So we are working to confirm the records of these people, but as Chris mentioned, it has been difficult to get information in a timely manner from DHS during these raids.
So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to describe the video because this appears to be the shooting that we're talking about. This is from Max Nestorak. He's helped work with us before. He's a phenomenal reporter. He works for the Minnesota Reformer. And he says on X that a witness shared this video with me showing an ICE officer shooting a driver in an SUV. And if you watch the video, this is 3 officers are standing around a Honda Pilot, which is the vehicle in question. We're not going to show it yet because we can show on air or not yet. But there are 3 officers who are trying to stop and get inside of a Honda Pilot, and a woman starts to drive away with an officer near the front left bumper of the vehicle. It certainly appears the woman was trying to get away and not to hit anybody. That's what my eyes see. I'm not, but I can't make a judgment on it, but I'm watching what happened and trying to report to you what I'm seeing.
Yes, it reminds me a little bit of the stop on I-94, where the gentleman whose name is escaping me was shot and killed by an officer, but that officer was being dragged inside his car.
Yes.
And charges were ultimately dropped against the officer who shot and killed the man because the life of another officer was in danger. Again, very early going. That video, you can see there was one agent or officer, I'm not sure who that was, on the side of the car trying to get into the car. And then you see a shot fired from the other side of the vehicle.
All right, so we'll work on getting approval to show that video and show what we can. But there are a lot of things in question right now, and we're hoping to get some answers. from these elected officials when they come up. Sammy, did you have something new?
Combing through that video, Chris. We're continuing to just see the aftermath of that video. I think you saw just the ramming part. Is that what you saw?
No, we saw the
shots fired.
And right now you're watching live coverage from Care 11 in Minneapolis of the aftermath of an ICE-related shooting, a deadly shooting. We understand that Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is holding a press conference, and she just addressed that ICE-related shooting in Minneapolis, calling it an act of domestic terrorism. Let's listen to what she said.
So a couple of questions there. You asked about a shooting that we just had in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened, it was our
How?
ICE officers were out in enforcement action.
If you're going to use words like domestic terrorism, show the proof. Show the proof that it was domestic terrorism. Until then, STFU.
With her vehicle. An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him. And my understanding is that she was hit and is deceased.
Now let's go back to NBC News senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley, who's also monitoring all this. Julia, this is a situation in which we are seeing information come out extremely quickly. We are seeing the statement from DHS that was put out and the statement there from Kristi Noem, who's saying that this was domestic terrorism. We're also seeing this video, and we're working on clearing this video. We are working on verifying this video, but there's already a piece of video that is going extremely viral online that may or may not show or match up to the statement that we're seeing here. It all happens very fast, but whatever happened in Minneapolis, it does appear was caught on camera, right?
It was, but the viewpoint of the video that I've also seen that you mentioned we're working to get verified before we show is from the back of the vehicle. And so it's unclear if the officer who shot at this driver had a different perspective from where he stood at the front of the vehicle. What does appear to be clear is that she reverses, which would make sense if you were trying to change your course before going forward and avoid hitting someone. The other thing is that once those shots are fired, the car veers off of the road into a snowbank and hits another car. It's unclear that firing those shots would have prevented the car from hitting the officer. In other words, the car was going anyway. If you make the person deceased, it doesn't make the car inoperable. It makes it out of control, and that's exactly what we saw in that video. What I'm doing right now, Gotti, as we get more information, reaching out to ICE to talk exactly about what the training does and how ICE agents and officers are trained for these situations. Many metropolitan police departments are trained not to shoot at moving vehicles. Of course, if there is an incident of a vehicle ramming incident, there are ways that they can be trained either to shoot at the driver or the tires or other things that they can do in these cases. I want to know exactly how ICE is trained. That's not something I have in my back pocket right now in terms of how these agents and officers react to moving vehicles. But this is as tensions are very high in Minneapolis. They put 2,000 new ICE officers and agents in this city just since Sunday. Border Patrol is arriving today. This is, of course, an escalation just since the crackdown began there in December, a lot in part because of rising tension between the Trump administration and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. In the statement from DHS about this incident, which they called fatal, this person was killed, they said at the end that this is the fault of Tim Walz's sanctuary city policy. So you can imagine Minneapolis is the new flashpoint when it comes to tensions over President Trump's immigration policies. And we expect more details to come because in the past, you and I have both covered officer-involved shootings. Think about to covering George Floyd. Think about to covering what happened in Ferguson, Missouri. I think about those incidents and how long it took for investigators to come out with a play-by-play of exactly what happened. In this case, we're hearing from DHS very quickly that this was a vehicle ramming incident. They're calling it an act of domestic terrorism, but it's before we are able to piece together all of these details. And we do expect a press conference from local leaders very soon where they may paint a completely different side of this picture. Again, DHS calling this woman a protester, but it's not clear exactly if she was protesting from her car or simply on her way through the area. What we do know is that she is deceased and that ICE is saying this was a vehicle ramming incident.
Julian, I do want to read the statement that came in from ICE on this. They say that today ICE officers in Minneapolis were conducting targeted operations when rioters began blocking ICE officers, and one of these violent rioters weaponized her vehicle, attempting to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them, an act of domestic terrorism. And then there is the video that we see. We have not been able to clear it, and we are not able to show it to you at this moment, but you may have already seen it online. It is going extremely viral. In that video, you see the SUV, a red SUV that appears to be in the middle of the road. Officers pull up in a truck. They say, get out of the vehicle or something along those lines. And that is when you see the reverse lights of that vehicle light up. The vehicle moves backwards, and then the vehicle moves forward. There are some officers around that vehicle. You immediately hear shots fired after that, and then that vehicle crashes into the pole. That's the red SUV that you're seeing down there on your screen. We understand the driver of that vehicle is now deceased. ICE saying that that person was killed. Again, they are calling this an act of domestic terrorism. That video, and whether there are other videos showing different angles, that is still yet to be seen. But the video that we were just describing, it shows the back of the vehicle. You don't see if the officers are in front of the vehicle when this happens. But again, all of this a very fluid situation. We understand that in just a little bit, we're going to be hearing from local leaders, local officials. And Julia, as we are trying to take a step back and see everything that's happening in Minneapolis right now, we can imagine that we're going to hear a very different perspective from local leaders than the official statement that's coming out of the DHS, right?
Yeah, that's right. I even just want to pull up what I saw from the CARE, which is the Alliance for American Islamic Relations. They're national, but in Minneapolis, they said that they called this a fatal shooting very early, and said they are going to be part of this press conference, and they're calling on law enforcement officials and law enforcement authorities and public officials to take concrete actions to protect Somali businesses. A reason why you're going to hear a lot about the Somali community in Minneapolis. First of all, that city is home to the largest diaspora of Somalis anywhere around the world. Many of them came in the mid-90s, fleeing that country's civil war. But the response from ICE is a direct response to reports of fraud committed by the Somali community in Minneapolis. A lot of that fraud was investigated going back to 2022 under the Biden administration. More people were charged just this fall for immigration-related fraud in that community. But there was a right-wing YouTube video that alleged fraud at daycare centers that came out just after the holidays. And that was the reason, as it was explained to me by senior DHS officials, for this escalation of ICE. And today, Border Patrol arriving in Minneapolis, even though the Minnesota department overseeing these daycare centers that were alleged to be fraudulently collecting taxpayer money in that YouTube video, the agency said the majority of them actually were seeing children and not fraudulently deceiving taxpayers by taking in money but not actually taking care of kids. That they were actual businesses and operations. So we're seeing a very quick response from the Trump administration based on that. That video is what led us to this point. There were talks of Border Patrol cracking down in Chicago again. That may soon happen. But Minneapolis really became this focal point. President was very vocal on condemning the fraud in Minneapolis after that video came out, and before the state investigators had actually gone in and looked into what was going on. And the planning for the operations you're seeing now began in response to that video that got over 100 million views on YouTube alleging fraud in the Somali community. And so now what you're seeing from advocates on the ground is really a call to try to protect some of those immigrants as they see these tensions rise. And again, what we first heard from eyewitnesses on the ground, both from those who talked to our affiliate and those who were posting on social media, is that they thought this was someone who was trying to get away from ICE, not injure ICE. So we've got two very different stories here. We're going to report more facts as we learn them. At this point, there seems to be a conflict about whether this was an act of domestic terrorism meant to assault ICE officers, or if this was merely a woman who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. and made an incorrect choice to try to get away from ICE officers, but did not intend to hurt anyone.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get some clarity very soon here. And yet I do want to point out this very bizarre dynamic that we're seeing play out in front of us. You see this crowd right here. The crowd is gathered at the crime scene, but beyond the crime scene, you have two different jurisdictions. You have the local Minneapolis police that are there securing the scene, and then you've got the federal officers that are beyond that, that we understand is still at the scene as well. And both of those jurisdictions, their leadership is saying very different things. In fact, we just got a statement from the mayor of Minneapolis. He said, quote, "We are demanding that ICE leave the city and state immediately. We stand by our immigrant and refugee communities. Know you have our full support." Juxtapose that with what we are hearing from the administration. Julia, I want to ask you, realistically, given everything that we've seen, the mayor is now calling on federal authorities and ICE agents to leave Minneapolis. There was just this shooting. Do you think that that is going to happen anytime soon?
If they do leave, I don't think it will be in response to these local leaders that the Trump administration has already called out, and they blame them and sanctuary city policies for this incident today. That's what we saw from DHS spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin. Patty, I do want to read you something. I'm speaking to DHS sources. Again, I said I didn't have in my back pocket what exactly the training is when it comes to ICE officers responding to moving vehicles. And a senior DHS official just told me that any use of force is dictated by a Supreme Court ruling, and that there must be a serious threat of injury or death. In a vehicle, we cannot shoot at the vehicle, only at the occupants. We can shoot, in a vehicle, we cannot shoot at the vehicle, only the occupants. The clear flight is not justification to shoot. What they're saying is we try not to shoot at a vehicle unless there is a serious threat of injury or death. And so as we get more details on this, DHS is going to have to potentially show that there was a serious threat of injury or death when the officer made the decision to fatally shoot the driver.
Yeah, especially in light of some of the videos that we are seeing circulating on social media right now. Julie Ainsley, thank you so much. And again, we are awaiting a press conference from local leaders there in Minnesota. We're going to update the situation, but we're going to join back now with our affiliate in Minneapolis, Carolyn. Let's listen.
The sheriff of Hennepin County, Duana Witt. Before we get to that, though, I do want to read again what the Department of Homeland Security, whose agents were in town conducting these raids and who were confirmed to be a part of this shooting, said. So this is DHS spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin. I don't know if it's McLaughlin or McLaughlin. She said, quote, "Today, ICE officers in Minneapolis were conducting targeted operations and rioters began blocking ICE officers. And one of these violent rioters weaponized her vehicle, attempting to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them. An act of domestic terrorism is what she calls it." She goes on to say an ICE officer, fearing for his life, the lives of his fellow law enforcement, and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. So this is the
DHS perspective.
This is the DHS perspective, and we're going live to that news conference right now with local elected officials. Let's listen.
There's a lot of information that is swirling around right now, and we collectively are going to do everything possible to get to the bottom of this, to get justice, and to make sure that there is an investigation that is conducted in full. But what we do know is that a 37-year-old woman is dead, and that she was shot by ICE. We've dreaded this moment since the early stages of this presence in Minneapolis. Not only is this a concern that we've had internally, we've been talking about it. They are not here to cause safety in this city. What they are doing is not to provide safety in America. What they are doing is causing chaos and distrust. They're ripping families apart. They're sowing chaos on our streets. And in this case, quite literally killing people. So, they are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is bullshit. This was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying, getting killed. As soon as it happened and we learned of the incident, we had several priorities. The first, of course, was to get the victim to the hospital and to get care as soon as possible. To the family, I'm so deeply sorry. There's nothing that I can say right now that's going to make you or your relatives or the friends of the victim feel any better. There were, I believe, 2 Minneapolis police officers that responded and were in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. The second was to get ICE off of the scene. There were dozens, if not hundreds, of ICE and federal officers that were there at the time. Having them there was only causing more chaos. Having them there was only making a difficult situation even more problematic, and one that, yes, they created themselves. There's little I can say, again, that'll make this situation better, but I do have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis.
Damn!
We do not want you here.
Oh.
Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart.
don't blame that guy.
Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being terrorized, and now somebody is dead. That's on you. And it's also on you to leave. It's on you to make sure that further damage, further loss of life and injury is not done. We're going to be working towards justice as quickly as we possibly can right now. And justice is what we've all got to get. Next, the message to our community. Look, we all know that the agenda of this Trump administration is to create chaos. Let us respond right now with our best versions of self. This is a moment where all of us in Minneapolis and beyond can rise to the occasion. We can show them who we are. We can show them the kind of courage, bravery, love, and compassion that makes Minneapolis, Minneapolis, and that makes America, America. We are better than a bunch of ICE agents being deployed to cities around the country and ripping apart families and communities. We're better than that. And so we are going to meet that hate with love. We are going to meet that despair with hope. We are going to meet that injustice with constitutional justice ourselves. And we're going to make sure that in this very difficult moment, we do not take the bait that these ICE agents are trying to create and that the federal government, to be clear, wants. They want us to respond in a way that creates a military occupation in our city. They want an excuse to come in and show the kind of force that will create more chaos and more despair. Let's not let them. Let's rise to this occasion. Let's show them something far more beautiful than the kind of division that they're trying to stoke. Let's show them unity of purpose, of love, and the courage of our conviction. Our conviction, to be clear, is rock solid, and it is for our neighbors, all of our neighbors. It's for people who have lived here for 80 years. It is for new immigrants who have made this city a better place. That's the kind of love that we're going to show up with right now. If you're angry, I get it. I am too. If you're feeling that kind of despair, it's understandable. Let's show them who we can be. Let's show up with peace. To march, to protest, to hug one another, to love all the way with peace. Do not give them what they want. Finally, we've got a lot of work that needs to happen right now to make sure that, first, of course, the scene was secured as much as possible, that we were able to get the victim, now deceased, to the hospital. We've got a lot of work to do in the coming days. I want to thank our city enterprise for the work that they have done, but more importantly, what they're about to do, because this is going to be heavy, and our city has been through a lot. We also know that we're prepared to do right for people. Among them is our chief of police. I'll invite him up.
My name is Brian O'Hara, B-R-I-A-N, O''H-A-R-A. I am the Minneapolis Police Chief. This morning, Minneapolis police officers received a report of federal law enforcement being involved in a deadly force incident, meaning shots had been fired. Minneapolis police officers responded to the scene. We arrived and found a woman with a gunshot wound to the head. Life-saving measures were performed at the scene, including CPR. The woman was transported to Hennepin County Medical Center, where she has since been pronounced deceased. The preliminary information that we have indicates that this woman was in her vehicle and was blocking the roadway on Portland Avenue, midway between 33rd Street and 34th Street in the city. At some point, a federal law enforcement officer approached her on foot, and the vehicle began to drive off. At least 2 shots were fired. The vehicle then crashed on the side of the roadway. Minneapolis police officers secured the crime scene and assisted in trying to preserve the evidence that is there. We have since turned over the scene both to the Federal Bureau of Investigation as well as the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, which will be conducting an investigation into this use of deadly force. I want to thank the mayor, city council president, other members of the city council, state legislators that were on the scene. This has been a very difficult time for everyone in the city. And this is obviously a very, very tragic situation where a woman has lost her life. That being said, in addition to this tragedy, which unfortunately we did predict, we were seriously concerned about further escalation from the scene. And I want to thank the elected officials that came themselves to help us prevent that from happening, as well as the individuals on that scene that remained peaceful and that abided by law enforcement instructions so that we could preserve that scene and ensure that a full and transparent investigation can take place. That being said, I just echo the mayor's comments that we ask that the community continue to call for peace. We understand people are going to be upset about what happened, and people are going to want to exercise their First Amendment rights. But please do so safely and lawfully to ensure that we do not have any further tragedy in the city or destruction. Thank you.
Chief, Sheriff, council members. Sure. I'll open it to questions.
Any idea on the identity of the ICE officer?
I don't have that information, no. The question was, is there an identity of the ICE officer that fired? I do not have that.
Therefore, we're going to ICE officer stop a position that was helping the lady who was shot. Is that true? We've seen videos all over social media that someone tried to help us and they were told they were pointing guns at them. That's what we know about that.
So the question was, there's information out there that people tried to help the woman that was shot and ICE officers that pointed guns at them and told them to leave. I do not have that information. I myself saw a video of the shots being fired as the car was driving away. What I can tell you is the narrative that this was just done in self-defense is a garbage narrative. That is not true. It has no truth. And It needs to be stated very clearly, since we have already seen a video of it. I do not know as to what you're talking about.
Mayor, she wasn't driving. She wasn't driving the car for him, using her vehicle as a weapon.
That does not appear to be the case at all.
How does the city of Minneapolis handle that situation going
Repeat it one more time. I forgot that I missed the first part of what you said. And I'll turn it over to the chief.
What does the city do when someone calls 911 to
Oh, I see. Yeah. I'll turn it over to the chief. The question is, what does someone do when a federal agent is pointing a gun at them? Chief.
So, if I heard you correctly, the question is about when people call 911, what is the city's protocol in these situations? We've had a very dramatic increase in 911 calls related to this activity. We have a protocol in place that has been evolving as the situation has been changing. And at this time, there is a designated supervisor that is on duty 24/7 that fields those calls. And we do everything that we can to ensure that they are appropriately prioritized, with the priority being placed upon the protection of life and safety of everyone in the community.
Can you tell us any more about the woman who was fatally shot? Was she there as a legal observer, protester, bystander? What do you know that you can share?
So the question was, what can I share about the deceased? There is nothing to indicate that this woman was the target of any law enforcement investigation or activity. This woman was in her car, and it appears then blocking the street because of the presence of federal law enforcement, which is obviously something that has been happening not just in Minneapolis, but around the country. She appears to be a middle-aged white woman.
Chief, just about a month ago, you said these unplanned and questionable tactics by federal agents would result in someone being killed at a press conference right now. Do you consider today's tactics in line with that, or do you just have a generic response to the fact that something's up there?
The question is that I had previously made several statements about being concerned about the tactics being employed. I am obviously very concerned that I have been told that a woman who was sitting in her car blocking the street and not the target of any enforcement activity is now deceased. However, I do not know, to be clear, I do not know the exact circumstances of the shooting, but I would tell you, in any professional law enforcement agency in the country, I think they would tell you it's obviously very concerning whenever there's a shooting into a vehicle of someone who's not armed, but it also is something that is possible. At times it is justified, but it is very concerning, and it's something that most law enforcement agencies in the country train very intensely to try and minimize the risk that law enforcement officers get placed into a situation that the need for deadly force would be necessary. I didn't hear the question, I'm sorry. The question was any indication about the need. I guess getting back to the justification of this, I have not seen any information other than what I have communicated. The question was if she was alone in the car. I know that I got there shortly after this call came in. I did not see anyone else with her while I was on the scene. However, I've since been told by our officers that have been with her the entire time that a spouse has arrived at the hospital.
We're just curious if you're thinking about contacting federal authorities to register your concerns about this, personally taking phone calls, etc.
Yes, we've been on the phone all morning. As soon as we learned about this, again, there were a series of priorities that we needed to go through. The first, of course, is to keep people safe and to help the victim in any way that we could. The second was to get ICE off of the scene. was the notion that ICE agents would be necessary to create a perimeter around the scene itself. They themselves were creating the kind of dysfunction and chaos that they claimed to be trying to help with. And so the message that we delivered very clearly was to make them leave. Now, beyond leaving the scene, they should also leave our city and our state. You know, we do work, our chief does work, our sheriff does work every single day to keep people safe in our city and in our state. And crime is dramatically down. Crime is down. It continues to trend down. They are doing the hard work of investigating, of arresting perpetrators of violent crime. What this federal administration is doing right now is not about creating safety. Do not let them tell you that what they are doing is about creating safety. It is not. It is having the opposite impact. We need to be clear-eyed about the work that is moving forward, and they need to leave Minneapolis.
We have time for one or two more questions.
Mayor, you may know this with your legal background. If the shooting is found to not be justified, does the city have any legal, or the state rather, have any legal recourse to bring charges against this ICE agent and this person is a federal agent? If the feds don't.
So, obviously, and I have to always lead with this caveat because it is true, an investigation still does need to be conducted. I had my perception of what took place based on the vehicle and the vehicle's positioning. It does not appear that the individual is trying to ram anybody. Now, the question was, if it is in fact found to be an unjustified shooting, who issues the charge, who prosecutes, how does justice take place? I don't know the answer in full to that. This is obviously information that we're still working out. Chief, do you have any additional information, or Commissioner?
The only thing I would add to the mayor's statement is that the crime scene was held by the Minneapolis Police Department, and the investigation is now being led jointly by the Federal Bureau of Investigation as well as the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And the purpose of their involvement would be to investigate whether any state laws within the state of Minnesota have been violated.
Can I just add something to that too? What's very important is that for our communities that we do have some kind of part in this investigation. It needs to be done on a local level. With all due respect to the federal level, we do need to make sure that our local agencies are involved. Well, certainly the BCA is very well capable of working with our federal partners in doing so. That is something that is needed for our communities, and so that's something that I can tell you that there's already been conversations from the U.S. Attorney's Office to the BCA that have already taken place today. How that's going to roll out, we don't know yet, but we are making sure that there is some kind of local entity, namely the BCA, that has a part in this investigation for the purposes of transparency and expedient transparency as to what happened today.
One more. That's it. Thank you, everybody.
Final, again, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you to the media for being here and disseminating this very important information around this tragic incident. To reiterate a final message to our community members, I understand the anger. Let's unite around hope and love and peace and getting justice. That's what we need to be doing right now. I appreciate the service from everybody up here as well as the 435,000 people that call Minneapolis home. Thank you.
Got some housekeeping for you in just a moment after we leave.
All right, we've just been listening in on city officials talking about the shooting at 34th and Portland this morning on 9 a.m. of a woman, a middle-aged woman. They said a 37-year-old white woman shot in the head, shot twice by an ICE agent. If you've been listening to the entire press conference, you heard Mayor Fry come out very strongly. I've never heard a press conference quite like this before from our city or state officials, saying that he wants ICE out of the city, using some colorful language to say, get out of Minneapolis. We do know ICE agents were cleared from that scene after the shooting just to try to calm the tensions as protesters in the crowd started to grow. The mayor clearly taking the tack that he believes this shooting was not justified after seeing some video of the shooting taken by a bystander. The police chief, Brian O'Hara, taking a more cautious tack, saying, you know, we don't know yet. We have to take get a little more information and take a little more time to figure out if this was a justified shooting. And if those officers were using deadly force because they felt their lives were in danger, that would certainly mean that the force was justified, but it's just too early in the chief's opinion to say that that is true. And of course, you heard the mayor saying that he believes DHS's comment that that's what happened is not true. He's saying that their narrative is a lie. And we do want to hear from Secretary of DHS, Kristi Noem. This is what the federal government is saying right now happened on the streets of Minneapolis this morning. Let's listen to Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, who is speaking about this shooting from Texas this morning.
I'm gonna go ahead and end this live stream here. Um, to that person that lost their life, prayers to the family. Um, and in my personal opinion, I got a feeling there's gonna be more people that's gonna be deleted due to ICE. I'll see y'all later. Peace.